Good evening. I'm calling our Southern Pines Town Council business meeting to order. If you'll please join me for the pledge. Thank you. I'll now have Manager Parsons include his comments for this evening.
Thank you, Mayor Clement, and good evening, everyone. A couple of items for this evening. Your consent agenda includes a number of items. You'll note the first one is adopting a resolution honoring National Public Works Week. I also wanted to bring to council's attention, as it just came to mind earlier this week, that May 11th through 17th is National Police Week also. And on May 15th is actual National Peace Officers Memorial Day. And as council is aware, having been through the police building and the administrative wing and elsewhere, National Peace Officers Memorial Day actually hits home here in Southern Pines, as we have had 4 chiefs, a lieutenant, and a detective all lose their lives while on duty throughout the history here in Southern Pines. So just wanted to recognize those 2 things. So in addition to the National Public Works Week, you have an agreement with the Weymouth Center for the Arts and Humanities that we discussed a little bit at the work session last month. That simply authorizes signature on that so that they can move forward with the lease of the artwork that will be utilized during the Revolutionary celebration through 2025 and 2026 that Weymouth has received some grant funding for to be part of that national celebration. You have 3 sets of minutes for approval this evening. The finance staff have put forward a budget amendment, and this is to meet another General Accounting Standards Board or GASB 101 requirement relative to compensated absences. This is something that we have always historically done relative to vacation time on the books for employees, but now they're starting to also wish to account for sick and personal sick time. So this is a budget amendment for that purpose. In the utility fund budget, it will be handled through other means in the general fund. And then finally, a request to close Fund 71 and transfer any remaining balance to the general and utility funds where those will be handled moving forward. That was a fund that historically was utilized back when the town had specifically a cafeteria plan under the IRS code, began to, as we were doing withholdings for various optional employee benefits, we used this fund as sort of a clearinghouse. In the process of hoping to clean the books up a little bit, particularly with all of the new GASB requirements relative to Sabita and others, Tess and her staff have asked to go ahead and close that fund out. So that'll be your consent agenda this evening. Beyond that, your first budget hearing will be the fiscal year 26 hearing. I will offer for those who are online, council had suggested we start looking into ways to kind of deal with the fact these screens are not visible. And while I don't have answers for all of that yet this evening, if somebody is viewing in for the budget hearing and wishes to take a look at the slides that will be shown on the screen during that hearing, they are now available at sopinesnc.info/budget. So sopinesnc.info/budget, and you'll be able to follow along with the slides as we walk through those. And then you'll have a couple of other public hearings, an evidentiary hearing, and then we'll talk about the action items when we get to those this evening. Happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, for adoption of the agenda as presented.
Council, do you have any questions?
No, just thanks for hearing the concern of people online and beginning to address it. I look forward to a screen being available to them, but that's great. Thank you.
Repeat that website as we open the budget as well.
I'll just, if I could say one thing, we kind of came up before with the Library Appreciation Week. We skim over it a little bit when we just pass these resolutions and the consent agenda, but thanks to our Public Works Department and all they do a tremendous service for Southern Pines. So I hate to just not say something and say consent passed, thanks Public Works. You're appreciated.
Yep, I'll make sure to deliver that in person. I'll see them next week as well.
Thank you.
Yep. Before we move on, are there other questions? No, okay. Before we move on, I do want to say that we have community care stations that are now active at the Free Little Libraries managed by our library, and we need the town's help to make those successful. Through this Sunday, May 18th, we're asking the community to pack them full with free essential items like shelf-stable food and hygiene items. If you or anyone you know could benefit from those, please be sure to stop by any of the locations to take whatever you need. I'll name the locations in a second. If you would like to donate, you can drop off the items at Masonette or First Bank, either the downtown Southern Pines location or Pinecrest Plaza, and the sponsors will pack and distribute them. If you need to drop them off, or if you need them, or you want to drop them off directly at the stations, they are located at the downtown park on Broad Street, near the bike station, Pool Park near the picnic shelter, Memorial Park near the skate park, Elizabeth Rounds Park on PD Road, and behind the Southern Pines Public Library. They are the extra little brown box under the Free Little Library, and eventually will hold additional books, correct? Okay, so eventually we'll just have extra room for books, but for now, they are community care items. So anyone who is able to donate, it would be appreciated. A couple other agenda things. We are moving the public hearing 6C, Village Walk Conditional Zoning District. I've gotten a request to make sure I get the right word. To continue it, which the applicant will mention in just a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and move that up to 6A so we can hear that first before the budget or the text amendments. 7A is going to be scratched because we have to do the conditional zoning first.
Again, magic word.
Condition, continued, I just said condition. So we're going to continue 7A, the preliminary subdivision plat. And then just wanted to mention before we move into public comments, that we are not allowed to have any public comments on items that are going to be up for public hearing tonight or otherwise. So if you would like to speak on the Village Walk Conditional Zoning District, or be involved in the Village Walk Major Subdivision Preliminary Plat, please do not speak this evening during public comment, and the hearings will not have public comment at them either. That being said, do you all have any other questions or recommendations for the agenda? Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Is second? As amended? Is it, okay, thank you. And you seconded it? Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Moving into public comments, I have two people signed up. We'll get through those two, and then if anyone else has come in and would like to speak, I'll just make sure I get your name and address. First, James Landum on solid waste. If you'll just go ahead and introduce yourself and your address as well.
Madam Mayor and the board, I appreciate this opportunity. Yeah, thanks. Madam Mayor, board, and staff members, James Landum. I live at 194 Starlin Lane in Southern Pines. I would like to commend this board and also the city staff for the hard work putting this budget document together. I know from my previous life in Georgia, I worked in municipal management as well, and I know it is a very challenging and ongoing process throughout the year to deal with limited resources and demands from the citizenry that sometimes are hard to meet. So I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank you for your time. I don't really have a complaint tonight. I just have more of a concern and maybe a suggestion, and I'm sure Mr. Parsons has already been looking into this for several years. My concern is the rate of increases for the solid waste collection. We're looking at about a 20%, just from my feeble calculations, of an increase this year. You know, my concern is not that that's going to break the bank for anybody, but we just went through the big push, and I'm very thankful to the town for the importance that you placed on recycling. I think we have a pretty high percentage of residents here who want to continue to do the right thing for our environment, and I was one of those who signed up for the 95-gallon cart to recycle. I don't think anybody's happy that we had to start paying for that because we were trying to do the right thing from the get-go. But, you know, $10 a month, I think, is not a big price to pay to do the right thing for our environment. But the concern for me is long-term. I think we may have several people that may be sitting on the fence, and 3 or 4 years from now, if we continue to have the rate increases that we have on solid waste collections, they may say, hey, wait a minute, you know, I'm paying already this much for solid waste collection. I'm going to have to let that $10 or $15 or $20, whatever it's going to be at the time, go, and I'm going to have to quit recycling because I just can't pay $30, $40, $50 a month for solid waste collection. Just doing a little cursory online search for surrounding jurisdictions, we're considerably higher already on our solid waste, as I know you guys are well aware of. So we're already kind of out of the ballpark on what the surrounding areas are. Now, I know there are many reasons for that. Where I was involved in municipal management was Griffin, Georgia, about 40 miles south of Atlanta. We had, and they still do, their own solid waste collection. We ran the solid waste for the city. We had our own C&D landfill. We did the whole 9 yards, similar to what Moore County's doing in Southern Pines. I would highly like to encourage, and I know that the initial cost to get into that line of business is just very, very expensive, but we were able to actually turn solid waste into an enterprise fund. And it did cost a lot of money over time to get into that ball game, but we had the dump trucks or the dumpster type trash trucks. We did the commercial type of trash. We did the household trash. What we did over the years, of course, is we went to the one-man trucks with the arms on them, and that cut down on our manpower. We didn't have to have 3 or 4 guys on one truck. But I know, Mr. Parsons, that you've looked into this, and I know it's extremely expensive, but I would encourage the board to maybe moving forward to look at that as an option, maybe do it incrementally or however you need to look into it down the years. I'm just concerned that I'm afraid with these continual increases, especially, 20% increase in 1 year, it's not going to take too many more years down the road before people are going to start saying, I'm just not going to recycle anymore. And that's my concern. But generally, I want to just take this time to thank this board. Mr. Parsons, I want to thank everyone for your time. I think that this town should be proud of the fact that we are a very well-run town. From all appearances, we have a gem here in North Carolina, and I think all of us know that. And so I just want to thank you again for your time, and thank you for allowing me to address the board.
Thank you, Mr. Landon. Now we have Dorothy Brower.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. Y'all can hear me?
Yeah, pull the
Okay.
microphone down just in case. You can pull it, yeah, tilt it down.
Okay.
There you go.
I came here initially with that in mind, that this is National Police Week, and it's good to know that it's Public Works Week as well. I would like to say that in my relationships or my interaction with both of these, it's always positive. And I think because Public Works has moved a lot of the operation down the street from me in what is Lost City, I'm able to see them, wave to them, even talk with them about issues. I would encourage you to please staff Public Works to the level that they need to be, because sometimes I think they're sort of short. And I think for us as citizens, police and Public Works are essential. I'd like to also echo the issue of recycling. I am one of maybe 3 households on my 2 streets who recycle, especially since the new program has been implemented. $10 is not a lot for me right now, but I think people needed an incentive and still need an incentive to recycle. I'm about to stop mine because it's hard for me to remember every other Friday. Before, it was the same. And I'm having, at my age, I'm having to put it on my calendar. But I think incentives to recycle, particularly in this day and age when there are families who cannot afford that extra rate, and they are putting everything in the garbage, and it is a burden for some families and will continue to be. I also had the opportunity recently to visit our Recreation and Parks office. Not as often as I used to. That office is not friendly as far as accessible. The steps are even scary for me. I would encourage the town to please relocate that office so that those of us who have the opportunity and the need to visit and to conduct business, to please move that office to a ground floor building or location. there's just nothing to say unless you put an elevator there. Also, I would like to encourage you again, I did encourage you once before, to please schedule a ride around with our Lieutenant Austin, day and night, in our community, and just take an assessment and say, is this where I would like to live? The growth of the sidewalks being taken care of properly? Do we have enough lighting? I've been told we have enough lights, but there's not enough lighting. So our community is very proud of who we are and where we are, but there are some services that are badly needed, particularly at night when you ride through. We are embarking upon a summer season that seems to be a little scary, or maybe a little scary, but I just think that for the protection of all and for the interests of all the citizens in Southern Pines and Moore County, we need to be comfortable in our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brower. We've had a few other people walk in, so I just want to let you know, again, we've had some changes on the agenda. Our Village Walk Conditional Zoning District and Village Walk Major Subdivision Preliminary Plat are both being continued, and so we are not having those hearings this evening, and we are not allowing public comment on either of those issues during public comment. That being said, if you would like to provide public comment on any general issues, there is time right now. I have a sign up. I'm happy to just add your names to it. I'll just do it. I'll add your names to it if you have something that you would like to speak on this evening. Is there anyone else who would like to provide public comment? Okay. Seeing none. Moving on to the consent agenda. Council, do you have any other questions or any questions on the consent agenda? No? All right, is there a motion to approve it?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Oh, sorry.
In
Brenda.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, consent is passed. Okay, public hearing. We moved item C up to the beginning, so if you would like to speak on your request to continue.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Bob Kuntz with Kuntz Jones Design. I'm here this evening representing the applicant, Moore HL Properties. We would like to request a continuance tonight for the application for the Village Walk and also for the evidentiary hearing as well, having more time to consider the application. The applicant is working with the Missing Middle Housing Committee, the Southern Pines Missing Middle Housing Committee, and there are some items that have come up during those discussions that we would like to have time to evaluate and maybe address with this application. So as part of that, we were requesting a continuance to the July 22nd Town Council meeting to give us time to work with staff and work with the Housing Committee.
Okay. I appreciate that you all are looking into something that we're working towards, July 22nd. Is there a,
Just to be clear, that's a work session date, not a business meeting.
July, we combine them into one meeting?
Ender.
It is the 22nd, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Does somebody else want to check that? All right, is there a motion to continue both CZ-03-25 and MAPP-01-25 to July 22nd?
We continue Z0325 and MAP 0125 to the July 22nd session per the request of the applicant.
Okay, is there a second? All those in favor, vote by saying aye. 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 Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll move on to our budget hearing. Is that you, Tess? Oh, sorry, Reagan. I should have known better. Sorry. Keeping you on your toes.
Second is
Okay, thank
the
you.
the business meeting.
So work session and business? Okay. It'll be a long meeting. Do we want to consider moving that meeting earlier than 6?
The work session appears to be canceled and just the business meeting.
Just the business meeting scheduled for the 22nd.
Okay. We're just gonna skip the work session that month? That's fine. That's blaming us. All right, thank you. All right, Manager Parsons.
All right. Mayor Clement, members of council, public present and streaming. Very pleased to present the draft 26 budget this evening. This will be the first of two public hearings. I know you had asked me to review that website in case somebody
Please do, yes.
tuned in a little bit late. So that is Sopines, Sopines, NC.
.info?
.info, thank you. sopinesnc.info/budget. And you'll be able to actually view these slides if you are at home and listening along. So the budget process each year, it's a year-round type of process, although we hit the ground very seriously running late December, early January at the staff level when directors start turning in some of their capital requests and project requests. We go through a long series of review, internal meetings, and meet with the council during the early part of April, where we retreat together for anywhere from 6 to 13 hours, depending on the given year. And we make changes to that draft budget, and we get it all tied up and then bring it to this evening's meeting for the first public hearing. So that's where we are this evening, May 13th. On June 11th next month, we will have a second public hearing like this one. More often than not, I give a much briefer version of this same presentation, although I will highlight any changes that may occur between this evening and June 11th, if that should occur. Of course, we'll also, I will be asking at the work session here in a couple of weeks whether there are any changes to be made that evening, unless something comes out this evening that happens faster than in a couple of weeks. Council adoption will be requested on June the 11th. We must have a budget in place prior to July 1. We do have to operate a balanced budget, and our fiscal year begins July 1. So you'll hear me refer to this as the fiscal year 26 budget. In reality, it runs from July 1 of 2025 through June 30th of 2026. Current economic realities, no surprise to much of anyone. Our tax base here in Southern Pines is very strong. We are doing very well in that area. We have a 29-cent tax rate, which is extremely low around the state of North Carolina, and that'll bring in about $13.4 million in property taxes this year. Much like everybody in their own home and business, we are seeing rising expenses. Inflation is a very real thing. The other thing we are experiencing, we've been very fortunate in recent years to watch our sales taxes grow pretty significantly, and it has allowed that tax base or that tax rate to remain low. However, we are starting to watch that level off a little bit. That's not to say it's necessarily decreasing, but it's certainly not growing at the rate that it has historically. And then, of course, we're dealing with the same challenging labor market that we're seeing in many other areas. Big picture-wise, what this budget does is we do keep existing services and staff are all in place and maintained and will continue. We are paying all of our debt service. It is funded. We are advancing a number of capital projects, and I'll be talking about those here shortly, and some additional programs and projects. And then we do maintain a minimum 25% reserve fund balance throughout the year, better known as a rainy day fund in many circles. And we've certainly seen our neighbors, both east and west, in recent years have to dip into these types of funds due to natural disasters. But that's but one thing that can cause issues that you keep a fund balance around for. Another way to think of that fund balance is that's simply 3 months of expenses. So 25% might sound like a lot, but it's 3 months. And with a major event, 3 months is not very much time at all to have to try and recover. Installment financing debt. So our fire pumper truck is now paid off. Hallelujah. Of course, we've got some others that we paid some cash for that we're waiting to be built. Fire Station 82, we will be paying for through fiscal year 32-33, which will be fiscal year 33. And that's got a principal balance on it of just under $2.8 million. And the real beauty of that one and the next one I'll talk about are the interest rates, which we probably won't see again in my career. But any discussion of maybe refinancing or paying those off early, I'm probably going to recommend against, because we were able to get a 2.06% loan on that firehouse, on the community development building, which we will pay off in fiscal year 36. We're sitting at 1.91%. So obviously, any construction we were to undertake and take a loan out today, we would not see an interest rate like that. As a perfect example, Carolina Green Parkway, that interest rate, which we just took that loan out in 2024, is at 4.85%, which still would probably be pretty good by current today standards. Big thing to note on that for the public, I know council is fully aware, but it is worth noting, it is listed on this because those funds are run through the general fund and they are considered general fund debt. However, that entire principal and interest payment is being made annually by a municipal service district, which is a special tax rate on only the parcels that happen to be contained within that district that surrounds the Carolina Green Parkway. So that is not having an impact on your 29-cent tax rate that the budget is based upon for general parcels around town.
And can you address the reason, you just said, oh, yeah, we paid for that truck early. We did pay for the truck early as it's being built, but there was a method to our madness.
Oh, there were a number of reasons we did
Yeah,
that.
can you
One, we
address
had
that?
some
That sounded
cash
like
on
we-
hand with some of the COVID-related funds that were in place. Number two, there was about to be a very significant increase in the pricing of those trucks. And number three, it takes currently anywhere from 24 to 36 months for the build-out of those trucks. So we had to get them ordered and paid for. Otherwise, we were going to take the increases each of the next 3 years until they were actually delivered. So thank you. Some of the capital fund transfers. So these are the capital project funds that we will be moving monies from the general fund into these individual items. We've got our annual street resurfacing fund, a general capital reserve that there's a number of projects already out there kind of floating around that we may wish to draw from that general capital reserve, or that can sit there and wait on the next large truck purchase, for example. We are making a transfer to a fleet facility fund that will be created. That is just an initial amount. Obviously, a fleet facility is going to cost a little bit more than $300,000, but we've got some design and engineering things to take care of on the front end of that. A sidewalk projects transfer, that'll be $200,000 toward our ongoing sidewalks project, and that will actually be the last section on Bennett Street to be to make a full connection along Bennett Street. And then a portion of that is also set aside for the evolution, I will say, of a block on Southwest Broad Street. With the recent changes in the one-way traffic and sort of extending it down a block, we have some blocks now, and this particular one is on the north side of the tracks. I'm sorry, on the south side of the tracks, and it's in front of what many will recognize as the Harbor Laundry facility, but it's in that block. If you drive into town, now that most everyone comes in, at least if they're coming from the south, that direction, that is a block that sort of is a little bit out of place because of its history there. So that's going to involve some brickwork and some nice landscaping and a real sort of transition of that block of downtown. That's within that $280,000 in the project transfer. And then the facility modernization number is a transfer that actually is going to end up being a new slate roof on the administration building downtown. Some additional projects and initiatives. If you read through this list, you're going to see a lot of lighting projects, a couple of irrigation systems at the downtown and pool park. What we have found is that most all of our irrigation systems are coming to end of life. The initial installations were some 25 to 30 years ago, and they have been duct taped and chicken wired together over the years, but we're having to replace a number of those, including those two, so the pool park and downtown park. We've got some new fleet lifts, replacement fleet lifts that will be coming in for the garage. Those are for some of the larger environmental services and fire trucks and things, so that the guys can actually work on those. And then a couple of new lighting projects involving Reservoir Park and also the skate park. I'll note on the skate park that the skate group, the foundation that assisted toward the construction of the skate park itself, have offered $10,000 toward that overall project. So there's a little bit of an offsetting revenue toward that expense within the budget. Again, just a 25% reserve fund balance, that equals $7.6 million in this budget, and it's 3 months of expenditures. The available fund balance you'll have heading into the year, based upon the numbers as we're projecting them currently, is about $648,000. Again, we have historically used the term available fund balance as those dollars that are available above the 25% reserve. So that's what the 648 recognizes. The actual ending available fund balance is the 8.2 million, but again, we reserve 7.556 of that. So $648,000 are monies that are available for allocation to other projects, opportunities, things that come up during the year. As an example, if you were not to hit the general capital reserve, we've got a couple of grant projects in right now that we could be back in front of council in the coming months. One involves some part of funds that we talked about at the work session for the perimeter trail at Whitehall. That will require a match if we are awarded the funds. There's a second item right now in front of the MPO, and we're very early in the discussion. But we are discussing with Pinehurst a joint application that has been placed in order to place Greenway Trail along Airport Road between where we currently end there with the Nix Creek Trail and then on into Pinehurst toward the circle. So that would be a joint application, and it's one that we may have to come back. There's some carbon reduction funds that have been made available to the MPO. Depending on the amount we receive in grant funds, which could be in the $100,000 to $200,000 range, there will be a balance match that we will share with Pinehurst in one form or fashion. I hope to have that project in a little more detail in front of you at work session later this month. But those are just two examples that could potentially affect the available fund balance were council to decide to fund some matching grants or things out of that. Where are the revenues coming from? This actually has changed pretty significantly over the years. You could almost always count on it being 55, 57% when you look at the far right of that screen in property taxes. We have now actually, not as a result of lowered values, but instead as a result of that sales tax growth that I talked about over the last 4 to 5 years. Sales tax has simply taken up a bigger part of the pie. So property taxes are now at about 48% of our expected revenues. Sales taxes represent another 22%. That still comes in at about 70%, which is historically the two of those combined have been in the 70 to 75% range. Again, the growth in sales taxes has just sort of cut into that pie. Then you see the other smaller parts. The sales and services would include something like your solid waste fee, which again, we have set at less than 100% on the residential side, but that number has increased to 75% to try and bring back on that for waste disposal and also the environmental services aspect of that, or yard waste as many may recognize it. So what can the residents expect to feel? Again, services will continue. The property tax rate is remaining the same at 29 cents. The monthly waste fee, you've heard that talked about a little bit earlier this evening, that will increase by 4.25 to $25.25, $27.50 for businesses. The recycling opt-in is remaining at $10 per month, so there's no increase in that figure. And that program has been very successful to date and has actually exceeded, I think, all of our expectations. We are a little over 2,000 customers that have opted in at this point at the $10 per month. So, and then finally on the water and sewer side, which is a separate budget, and I'll talk about it here shortly. As we discussed at the retreat, we are increasing those availability and per thousand rates by 2%. Which for the average customer using 5,000 gallons a month will equate to $1.60 for the month. This is just a little graphic to show what you could expect to pay based upon your home assessed value. So again, your appraisal at Moore County, which far more often than not tends to be below what the actual market value of your house will be at any given moment. But if you've got a home that is currently valued by the county, home and land, of $150,000, you'll pay Southern Pines $435. And you can see how it scales on up. If you've got $650,000 worth of home and land, that's a $1,885 bill that you'll be paying to Southern Pines. This is the Southern Pines portion of your property taxes. This does not account for what you're paying to Moore County for the schools, the jail, the sheriff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just the Southern Pines portion. The reason that 492,950 figure appears there, not because we just randomly pulled it out of the air, that is the average home and land value for a parcel in Southern Pines this year. That comes from Moore County. So they simply took the total value of residential lands, they divided that by the number of parcels county or townwide, and it's that 492,950 is the average. So the average owner of that average home is going to pay $1,429.56 to the town. Sales taxes, I've talked about a couple of times. They are a little over 20% of our revenue now. This is just an interesting stat in that without those sales taxes, in order to generate the same revenue, we would have to generate another $777 per household in order to make up for the sales taxes. So again, to put that in perspective, if you kind of look across that scale, you see a $250,000 home brings $725. So probably it would take, I haven't done the full math, but $265,000 to $270,000 of value added to your home, basing off of 29 cents in order to break even if we weren't collecting those sales taxes. So they are very important to the town budget. Where a dollar goes, just another graphic representation for those that are visual learners. 38 cents goes to public safety, that's going to be your police and fire. 35 cents goes to general government. That is not a giant sinking fund, that is actually all of the HR, finance, IT, and other items that support public safety and recreation and transportation and the other items that are on that, are a part of that dollar bill. The other thing that is included in general government is your solid waste contract, interestingly enough. So that 35 cents covers quite a bit of services. Cultural and recreation, again, that's library and recreational services. Transportation being streets, economic and physical development being your planning and inspections departments. And then the non-departmental transfers, those are things that cover things like the fact that we pay our own water bills. So if we have buildings that have water and sewer, we are actually making transfers to the utility fund in order to cover that.
It's probably the slide where we should stop and acknowledge the fact that as brilliant as you are at your job, that Jessica Roth has to be behind this.
Oh, the graphics?
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to get to that to the end.
Okay, great.
Well, Jessica and Gerald, yes, yes. Now, I could sit here and talk spreadsheets all day, and
Okay.
I wouldn't get lost in it. But
Okay.
for those that are visual learners, I have others that support me in making that happen, yes.
Pretty impressive slide.
So on the enterprise budget, water and sewer operations, again, 2% increases. 2290 is the current, or will become the new base rate or availability rate. That's a 45-cent increase a month. And then on your consumption rates, again, across 5,000 gallons, it comes to a total of $1.60 a month. The only debt service currently in utilities, one is just a portion of the community development facilities, because that's where a lot of our water and sewer administrative staff operate out of. And then that we have an ASADRA loan that was taken out towards some sewer rehabilitation. For those wondering what ASADRA is, it is the Additional Supplemental Appropriations for Disaster Relief Act of 2019. So we were able to access some funds from the state revolving fund at a very good interest rate in order to expedite some of that sewer rehab that is taking place around the community. And we do have a payment of $228,000 to make on that loan. Looking ahead for 26-27, this slide doesn't change an awful lot from year to year. We, of course, have aging facilities and infrastructure, doing a very good job of kind of dealing with a lot of that infrastructure. we are trying to deal with some of the facilities, but it is more of a challenge with each passing year, and anybody that owns an old home knows what those challenges can be. There's always a desire for new services or facilities, being recreational type facilities with the public, and we'll continue to look at those and try to work those into the budget that the council feels are necessary for the continued and improved quality of life here. Increased revenues from growth are not going to keep pace with inflation. I know that's difficult to believe. It's easy to drive up and down Morganton Road and say, wow, we must have a giant windfall. But the value of that is only being taxed at that 29 cents for starters. And as we are all aware in our own home budgets, inflation has far, far outpaced any increase in growth that we're seeing here from a tax-based standpoint. We'll continue to try and balance rates and fees and taxes versus the services that may potentially be reduced or eliminated. A lot of the discussion earlier this evening about recycling and solid waste fees, those are the types of conversations that we're always having internally and that we certainly have when the retreat comes around. It's a matter of tax rate or other ways to try and at least break even on those types of items that you can measure or otherwise charge directly for. And of course, we always want to remain an employer of choice because we can't really do a whole lot of what we do without people. And we've got a lot of good ones we'd like to keep. So with that, jumped the gun a little bit, but I do want to thank the council certainly, thank the staff, specifically Jessica and Gerald relative to the wonderful graphics, Tess and her crew for all of the spreadsheets and data that sort of helped this budget to all come together, and then the entire group of directors and their reports that really put a lot of thought into putting forward projects, trying to time those projects out, and make this work from year to year to year. So I'm very, very fortunate to work with a lot of great people. With that, I'm happy to take questions from the council or stand down and allow the public hearing to occur, whatever the pleasure of the mayor would be.
Let me see if we have any questions from the council first.
I just want to say, and Joseph Hill, who took an amazing photo that was in there too, that was incredible. That's just amazing. Yeah. Yeah, that was incredible. I want a copy of that.
Jessica, this was great. It's great for the resident. There's a lot of information piled on 4 pages of paper.
Pointing that out, there is a residence, and that is also available online. Thank you for reminding me of that one.
It's great.
Yeah, I will echo your appreciation to staff, Jessica and Gerald for the presentation, and Tess and her department for the preparation, but also to you for putting this together. If there are no questions for Reagan.
I actually do have a
You
question.
do, okay. Oh, and I'll say something.
Is there a way going forward, starting next fiscal year, this coming fiscal year?
I already asked a question for you, but go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's a different one.
Oh. Go.
Can we track costs associated with or revenue associated with recycling separately, just instead of just lumping it into general? You asked that?
I mean, kind of. So, I mean, to Mr. Landum's question, we did talk about
Enterprise fund.
enterprise fund, which would allow
Yeah.
also the recycling fee to be,
Well,
pulled
but
out
starting this
specific.
year, as far as like, so right now, it just goes into general revenue.
It is being shown in your line item under the fees and things, but we're not separating out the recycling separately, but that is certainly something we can do.
Yeah, I'm specifically talking about the revenue and the expense associated with it, so we can see,
Yeah.
one, that we're recapturing 100%. 2, if there's excess available to reduce recycling fees
that-
next year.
That is possible to do both the revenue and the expense. That's
Yeah.
not a problem at all. And probably can get those numbers together for you. I don't want to promise them within the 2 weeks, but
No, I don't even
But-
mean this, I mean just track it throughout the year.
no,
Or have it next year.
No, we can absolutely
Yeah.
track that. As far as it paying for itself, just remember that the way that opt-in recycling is set up through the contract is it's in tiers.
Right, I'm
So
looking
whether
at
it,
last year's.
whether it ultimately pays for itself depends upon how much of the final tier that you're in you have filled.
So we're at the lowest end of the highest tier.
Currently,
Right now.
that is the case, yes.
Right, so we're paying
So
the
more
most.
signups or losing just a handful of people would financially be beneficial.
Correct. So, yeah, but it seems to still be growing slightly. Yeah,
We continue to have more signups, people move in, et cetera, or they realize it would be useful, or, but we tend to, we continue to have more signups than we do people dropping.
right.
Councilman Goodman just mentioned that. What's the percentage then of people we would need to get to the highest point?
I cannot
You
answer
know?
that
Okay,
on the
sorry.
spot, but
Sorry.
We need 2,413 people to get the rate to $9 from 10. And then, and that's adjusted for inflation this year, based on their inflationary number last year. I'm looking at last year's spreadsheet.
Additional, no, it's not.
An additional 400 people.
Alright.
But we don't know where we were, because it changed every month, right? Or it could change every month, right? So we don't know necessarily the plus or minus for this year. So it'd be nice to know it. I guess we could figure that out, though.
yeah.
But,
And again, our data right now is only 5 months old. Because we
Correct.
just started in January. So
that's correct. All right, cool, thanks.
there's trends to be had based on seasonal
Right.
things. We haven't gotten there yet.
Right.
So
My other comment is, I think that we may in fact have a member of the skate park community with us this evening. And I wanted to say thank you for the continued partnership. That's extraordinary. More importantly, apparently everybody at the skate park is tolerating our planning department chair, who's out there working on his skateboard every day and wants to be on the JV team. So we want to thank you for working with BJ. Actually, in all seriousness, he said it has been extraordinarily welcoming and just been a wonderful, inviting, hospitable place to be. And I think that has been, a lot of that's been your leadership, so thank you. It's really cool.
So apparently there was an issue, there was a misunderstanding about the skate park lighting, and there was a chance that people were going to show up and ask for money, but maybe we've already given the money. Is that what happened?
I just looked back, so I was like, is Willie behind you?
We're going to give you all the credit because you're here.
That's okay. So my name is Michael Arena. Nice to meet everyone.
Yeah,
If I can hear you. Sure.
sure, yeah.
I also like almost dress very good. Oh, I should dress like the rest of the community today. See how it goes. Hey guys, my name is Michael Arena. Nice to meet everyone. I do support the Skaters for More board, and it's a privilege to be here today and come and show up. Unfortunately, I do live in Aberdeen, but I've been supporting Southern Pines for as long as I can. And this is just my consensus, I do believe that the funds were available through the town at the last minute, so we do thank you for that and squeezing us in there. I know that we, as a, non-for-profit, are pushing for that $10,000 in advance. We're just very grateful. I'm excited to be here. Actually moved down here 5 years ago in October from New York City. I have never felt more included in the community, and seeing that you guys put together funds for a skate park, one of that size, and also with the integrity of the builders that you chose, we're all very gracious. And as a business owner in the community, it does help out all of us. So yeah.
Well, I will tell you that I sat in with some of the planning department today. Actually, I guess it was James, our engineer. Nope, it wasn't James, it was Graham. It was a lot of people I talked to. But they are working on getting the lighting lined up, so as soon as the budget is approved, and we move into the next fiscal year, which would be July 1st, we're trying to get the lighting done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic, and we're very appreciative. I think that we've seen a lot of success at the Apex Park, where they installed the lighting, and just the community that brought together, along with a few other parks in the area. I think, to be honest with you, I've never seen people more behaved in public. I think the level of accountability that is held, because it's next to a children's park, is also very smart. If you guys planned that, kudos to you, because every asset in town, I feel like, is a little bit secluded except for that one. So I was like, oh, this is great. But if you guys ever need support or anything, at least myself or one other person will be attending the rest of the meeting. So thank you. We have a ton of gratitude. I've been in a lot of towns in my life, and I've yet to see one that's so supportive of a community. So thank you very much.
We appreciate you being here. Thank you. Did you want to add something?
I will offer on that project because you were part of the conversation that I was earlier today when he said they had everybody kind of lined up and such. Double checked in with finance and asked what ready really meant. If that is a project that everybody is in fully behind and it's definitely being funded come July 1 and you'd like to get it moving now before the summer and try to get the lights in and such, we can certainly make that happen. And it may mean I come back to you with a small budget amendment at the work session in 2 weeks just to make sure the books all balance and such. But if that's kind of a unanimous thing at this point in time, that is one that's small enough that I'm not bothered at all by pulling it into this fiscal year instead of next.
I'm in. School's out in just a few days.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, let's move forward on it.
We'll,
So have a place
we'll make
after
it
work.
happen then.
Thank you.
You don't want to see me come back into the office after lunchtime at the skate park.
Wait till the sun goes down, that'll be better. Cool off. I did have one question. The Morganton Park fencing that we have in our budget to replace, which field is that? Is it Optimus Field?
That's Optimus Field. Yeah, it's across the street from where we were talking about today.
Also, on the Recreation Department budget item, it's called Culture and Recreation. Can we talk about changing the name of the Rec Department to Culture and Recreation at some point next year?
Change it to something?
To
Change it from that?
No, change it to Culture and Recreation rather than just Parks and Recreation. We can talk about it.
Yeah, and to be clear,
No, we switched.
no, it's changed to Parks and Recreation, but to be clear, it's cultural and recreation because it also includes library.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it.
It's a slightly different designation than a department because there is a combination there.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you.
Not to talk you out of it, but I did want to point out yeah.
All right. Do you all have other questions for Reagan? Are you ready for public comment? Okay, if anyone is here who would like to speak on the budget, this is our first public hearing, and we are open to public comment. Just come up to the microphone, make sure it's on, introduce yourself, and provide your address. Ms. Brower, welcome back.
Yes. Allow me to be petty. Dorothy Brower, 102 Eastman Road. Recycling is not a success in my community. I'd like to reiterate that. One day, my recycling bin was full, and I put the 2 green containers that I had from last recycling out. They did not take the green ones. They emptied the big bin, did not empty my green ones. I was offended. That leads me to believe that recycling is not valued by the company. Also, let's look at our overgrowth in our right-of-ways in West Southern Pines. When I see Town of Southern Pines staff on US 1 cutting grass on a state highway, and I understand there's an agreement of some sort to do that, and I ride through my neighborhood and I see that there's lots of places where they should be practically on every street doing the same thing. Is it that we don't have enough staff to take care of West Southern Pines, or that's not a priority? In the past, we've been told that there's a schedule for cutting. That doesn't work here. When you have lots of rain and the next day, even in your yard, the grass is up. Coming in this building tonight, the shrubbery is overgrown on the sidewalk. It's growing into the benches, so who can sit on those benches with the growth? I don't blame the Public Works. I say we need to staff at a level that we deserve, and that if we are able to take care of a state highway, we can certainly take care of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? You're all here. Surely you want to say something. Okay. You sure? All right. Okay, so I do not close this public hearing because we're not voting on it today, but we will have another public hearing at our June 11th meeting, June 10th meeting. Okay, and we will allow public comment then as well. And that is when we hope to vote and adopt the, what? Okay, that's when we hope to adopt the budget.
Mayor, I think you can close this one.
Do I close it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, all right. Then I'm closing the public hearing. All right, moving on to OA-01-25, the proposed text amendments to the Southern Pines Unified Development Ordinance. Ms. Brower, thank you for your comments. Director Grieve.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I am BJ Grieve with the Town of Southern Pines Planning Department, here to present to you this evening a proposed text amendment to our Unified Development Ordinance. The origin of this text amendment is with what was known as Senate Bill 166, which came about in the last legislative session. It was adopted as Session Law SL 2024-49. I'm going to shorthand that this evening. Yes, please. I only have 2 slides, but in that one moment, this is going to be handy, yeah. Thank you very much. I'm going to refer to it this evening as Senate Bill 166, even though it obviously gets codified then as Session Law 2024-49, because SB 166 is a little quicker to say. That bill had a number of requirements that pertain to Chapter 160D, a number of changes in language in Chapter 160D, and we knew as soon as it passed, as soon as the legislature overrode the governor's veto, we knew we were going to have to do some work on the UDO. And with the assistance of David Owens, our consulting attorney, as well as Mac, we worked on the provisions from 166. Now, just to be clear, right now we're in a session, there's a lot of bills flying around and being talked about. This is from the last session, and this is now, the dust is settled from the last session, and we can go in and we can look at this. In your packet this evening, you had a red line version of the UDO with the pages that were being affected. That same red line version has margin comments that explain staff's thoughts about why certain language was chosen, why certain sections, why things were inserted in certain places and not other places. So I'm not going to go into all that detail here this evening. That was in the packet. I'm happy to go into that detail if you would like me to. Otherwise, what I am going to do is hit the highlights of 5 main amendments that are being proposed to the UDO that do come from Senate Bill 166, and then 2 other amendments that were thrown in with this. They've been waiting in the wings to get thrown into a package, and they are very technical in nature, so there's no big policy shifts here. So with that, I'll jump right in. Please interrupt me at any time, obviously, and ask for more explanation, but otherwise I'll go over these fairly briefly. Section 2.20.6 is being amended to add a variety of details about the subdivision performance guarantees. Subdivision performance guarantees used to be referred to as subdivision improvement agreements. They are the agreement that we, the town, enter into with a developer so that the developer can apply for final plat without some things being done. The agreement comes with a bond for the remaining improvements. They have expanded in usefulness so they are no longer just subdivisions. Now they can be done for any type of development that's authorized under zoning, but they're referred to as subdivision performance guarantees. Can be very confusing when you're not dealing with a subdivision. But they are, now we have some additional provisions regarding extensions, some additional provisions regarding inspections, and some additional provisions regarding one other thing that doesn't come to mind right off the top of my head. But yeah, those details are in there. They come directly from statute, and so those are good. We also have a change to Section 2.39.2, which prohibits the town from withholding a certificate of occupancy to compel completion of work in certain specific situations. The bill was very clear that a certificate of occupancy, that last moment with certain structures, you can no longer withhold a CO to compel compliance with other requirements in a variety of circumstances. Those circumstances are written into the UDO. The language comes almost verbatim from North Carolina General Statute. The third one, the town may not limit or prohibit the use of curb and gutter design standards adopted by NCDOT in subdivisions serving residential dwellings. So if it's good enough for the state of North Carolina, it has to be good enough for us. That's the shorthand for that one. The town may not require sidewalks on public streets in the ETJ for subdivisions of 20 lots or less. That is a remarkably short version of a very interesting provision in there that carves out a very specific situation that I can't think of a time when that's ever happened in Southern Pines during my time here. But in looking at it, it absolutely could present itself. It's in the ETJ, and then the way we put the language in there was to be consistent with state law, but to also allow, in a limited circumstance where there may be the ability to develop a greenway or some type of pedestrian connection, if the town takes over the maintenance of that, then it can still be done. So that language is in the UDO now with this proposal. And finally, under the 160D pile, you have updating the definition of built-upon area to make sure it is 100% consistent with the definition that is in state statute. It needed a little bit of tweaking based on the language in Senate Bill 166. So in that relatively dry, monotone presentation, I will now move on to the other two miscellaneous UDO amendments.
Can I stop you right here? one
Yes,
second?
sir.
So the second bullet, 239.2, so that is in order to compel work with respect to another property or parcel only?
Yes, according to the language in the state statute.
So not to comply with a different permit on the same property?
That's right.
Right, okay, because when you said it. That's what I thought too. Yeah, and then but in here, the details say, with respect to another project, so it's not,
Yeah.
this project, you can't withhold CO
Yeah.
because your fence isn't up,
That's right.
or you could, actually, this part of the same permit, but you can't basically compel them to do something because of something that's not done on another project or property elsewhere.
That's correct. Now, this provision has already come up in many meetings because,
I'm surprised that ever needed a law.
well, you also have to consider situations where you've allowed Phase 2 to move forward. And Phase 2, an administrative minor subdivision has occurred to make Phase 2 its own parcel.
Okay.
They move on with Phase 3. They haven't finished the common area in Phase 2. And they said, don't worry about it, we'll do it before CO. You've actually heard developers commit to doing things before CO is granted. And recently, you've heard me say, pause, don't let that be a commitment, because our hands are actually fairly tied on that issue now under Senate Bill 166, and this is codifying it under the UDO. It's not super common, and yes, there are many instances where what you think when you read this is, I'm going to deny your CO for this building because you, the builder, haven't finished up a building on the other side of town yet. But it actually presents itself in many situations where you do have adjacent parcels that are two different properties. So, but we're very careful about how we use that. Our preference is not. In fact, we really try to avoid compelling compliance with withholding of a CO for anything that is subdivision or overall development related, because, particularly with subdivision, there's always a moment when a CO is desired and a family is about to move into a house, and if you're holding it up because the developer hasn't completed some infrastructure elsewhere in common area or common area that's also carved out as a separate property, you see what I'm saying? Because they've already done a final plat at that point. And that's how it gets complicated. Remember, if they're granted a final plat, they may say, at the time of being granted a final plat, they may say, well, you can withhold that at CO. We've had projects at Carroll Pines where they said you could withhold CO, and that has not worked because you're not going to get those two trees in the yard prior to CO. So we actually try to avoid this anyways for, you might say, best practice reasons. But yeah, and also because we can't do it, so. It's a bad time to be asking for last minute stuff.
And that last comment is from the town's perspective. Bad time for the town to be asking for last minute stuff, not the developer. Was that your point?
Ooh, I think that's my point.
Okay. Just checking in.
I don't even remember.
Who said that? I said that.
I mean, I read it as it could be retribution for not having completed another. I read it the same way. That
Yeah, I think as is always the case with, and I'll be careful with my comments here. I think as is always the case with many things that come out in bills, there's a situation that occurred and it was a pretty bad one.
Right.
And therefore it's a situation that's sold very well to people that said that shouldn't be allowed. And then when it's applied, sometimes it has some unintended consequences where
Right.
places where it hasn't really been a problem, but you go, okay, we can't do that now. Previously, maybe everybody was fine with using CO as the mechanism to do that because it allowed the developer more time to get something done. They could be building the house and get something done, and then don't worry, we'll take care of it before CO. But when it doesn't, there comes this very awkward moment when the town says, no, we're not going to grant you your CO until that's done. And if what's not done is kind of a heavy lift, a bigger project, then, ooh, that's not, when I say we don't like it, we're all sit there and go, oh, boy, we're going to have to withhold the CO.
The point is, those other things that you described are tied to another permit altogether.
We work very hard to make sure they are at this point,
Right.
yes. Yes,
Right.
absolutely. They have been tied to CO in the past, and I can think of a couple of noteworthy examples. And now we see that in hindsight, we go, whether that was legal or not, that just wasn't good practice, actually. It was, so we've learned a lot in that regard.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
yes, thank you, absolutely. Okay, so with the next one, and please know, I'm more than happy to pull up the actual track changes and get into more detail, but I'm trying to hit the sweet spot of brevity versus also, it's a public hearing, so I want to make sure there's an understanding of what's going on. The two other miscellaneous UDO amendments, you may remember, not long ago, our town manager was facilitating a transfer of 570 exemption allocation credits, acreage, from the county to the town. And everything was going along swimmingly. And then we began to hear from staff at the EMC that the ability to do that transfer, which we had done before, ideally should be written into your code specifically where it says this may be done. And so I did a little homework on that, as did Reagan. He pointed me in the direction. And sure enough, in the model water supply watershed regulations, it does say that should be in there. Moore County has it in there. And so while it didn't hold up our transfer, it definitely was better to have it in there to make it very clear this can be done. So we did that. We wrote in an allowance for the transfer of 570 exemption allocation into a section of the UDO where that watershed protection overlay is written, where we felt was the most logical place, which was a footnote to the table that talks about protected, critical, and rest of watershed. So that's in there. And then finally, we had an inconsistency with our Board of Adjustment voting requirements, which allowed for certain circumstances where you could have a 4/5 vote versus a majority vote. And it needed to be fixed, and it was on my to-do list. I've told the council in the past that when things come up, I scribble it down, sometimes literally on a Post-it note, and I have a file where I keep it, and when I have little opportunities to throw things in, I opened up that file, saw that one in there, I said, we can fix that one real quick with this. And so now it wasn't a problem, but other than the fact that it just wasn't consistent with statute, so I wanted to get it fixed, and that is consistent with 160D 406I. Those are the amendments that are part of this package. It's mostly a Senate Bill 166 update. That's the most consequential stuff, and then these other two things. Do you have any further questions for me, or would you like any further details that I can dive in a little bit deeper?
I have, I'm all for what you've done. I have one question, just being a person who's not as familiar as you are with these many things. When you underline, which tells us here's a change, is there a magic to when you also highlight? Sometimes it's highlighted and sometimes it's not.
In the packet, some
In the
things were
packet.
highlighted and some things were
Yeah,
not?
sometimes the underlined things are also highlighted. Is that a secret code of sometimes?
No.
Okay,
Usually what it is when I'm in my working draft,
Okay.
I will tweak the text using track
Okay.
changes, add a margin comment, pardon?
That's the underline.
that's the
Yes,
underline.
underline and then strike out for
Maybe
deletions.
it's when there's a comment, that may be when the highlight happens. When
Yes,
there's a highlight.
yeah,
That's-
commenting,
okay.
and then sometimes I'll put in highlighting to come back to it, and it's possible that if it's only in one or two places, I may have missed removing the highlighting before I prepared the track changes version for the packet.
Okay.
If it's only in one or two places. If there's lots of it, then it's totally intentional, and there's a really good reason for it, I'm sure.
I think it's the way the comment works. I think that's what
Okay.
happens. I think, okay.
Okay, yeah, that's
It
normal.
makes it harder to
When you
read.
say highlight, do you mean like a yellow highlight or a gray highlight?
I mean the same shade.
Oh, the track changes does that with a comment. Yes, when you highlight text to add a margin comment, it does that. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it harder to read that way?
Old eyes do not appreciate
Okay,
that.
understood.
You know,
I'll-
whatever. I don't know if you can do anything about that, because having worked with Google Docs before and know that that does highlight,
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the problem.
And you know what? I can definitely tinker with that. I
Okay,
can't
thank
imagine
you.
it wouldn't let you make it a different color or something like that. So I'll
Okay,
be very
great.
conscious of
Thank
that,
you.
and I'll
Yeah.
work on it for next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be difficult to read.
Was that a motion you made?
No, that wasn't a motion I made.
you have other questions?
That was an old, that was an old person glasses statement.
Do you have other questions?
All right, thank you. Thank you.
As a public hearing, if there's comments. Yeah, if there's anyone in the public who'd like to comment? Yes.
BJ, I have a
Cynthia, come up to the microphone, introduce yourself and give us your address.
this often.
Okay,
Good
just make
evening,
sure-
everyone.
Press the button if we can't hear you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Cynthia Dowdy. What else do I need to say? Address. Oh, 245 North Leek Street. And I wanted to make a comment to BJ to pull up the amendment number 4. In terms of, it is really for the commissioners, for the Appearance Commission. And there was something in there you stated that I want to share with them so that we can be aware of, and I'd like to take a picture of it. I know I can look it up and do all that. Your amendment, just what you were all speaking about, but it's number 4
On the agenda?
on the agenda, yes. What you
The
just-
sidewalk amendment, is that what you're trying to?
No, in particular, the amendment for UDO, all that you just presented, if you go back about 4
slides.
slides, yes, it's there. It should be there.
I'm sorry, there's only 2 slides.
Oh,
No, that's the one about sidewalks and the ETJ.
But there are several sections.
okay. Maybe I'm on the one, A1, 01, 0A, 01, 25, proposed text amendments. And there was a 4th, as you were going through, a 4, 3, 4, 5.
Yep, and the number 4 is that one. It's about the town may not require sidewalks on public streets in the ETJ for subdivisions of 20 lots or less. I'm sorry, hold on.
Yep, and I
Yes,
thought,
that was the one where the text from the bill is very specific about situations. I pointed to that and I said, that is a very, very, very simplified version of the text that is in and I said, if you would like an example of that, I can
and
show
before
it to you.
these 2 slides that you presented
Oh.
in your presentation.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Was there something you were taking back to the Appearance Commission? or-
Yeah, I wanted to take back to the Appearance
Oh,
Commission. I
okay,
thought
I
we
thought
could pull it
maybe
up.
BJ.
Thought I could pull it up. But we can take this certainly offline since that's not what I'm seeing right now for. Sorry, I forgot my
No.
glasses.
Oh, I have glasses you can borrow if you need.
That's not, say that again?
Would you like to borrow some?
I could, but no. I'm going to take,
Wasn't the one, I'm looking at 3, I'm trying to think of what the Appearance Commission.
no, of these 2 slides in your these 2 slides in your presentation. And I'm not seeing what I thought I saw so that I
Board
could
of
take
Adjustment
that.
voting?
No, there's no way. For,
No,
what was the subject matter of the,
it was DOT, when you were speaking toward the DOT.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, number 3. The town may not limit or prohibit the use of curb and gutter design standards adopted by NCDOT in subdivisions.
Yes.
That's what I was saying,
Yeah,
number 3.
thank you so much,
no sweat, no
Councilman
sweat.
Deborah. You're absolutely right. I believe that is what I was saying. Sorry it took you so long through that.
It's okay.
Okay, thank you.
do you have a picture of it? You want a picture of the slide? Go for it, yeah.
Thank you, Ann. And I'll follow it up, certainly.
Great.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank
If
you.
there's something else that becomes an issue, feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, please do. Feel free to call me and we could visit about anything that's on your mind. Yeah.
Of course. Any other comments from the public? Okay, seeing none. Council, do you have any questions or concerns about the text amendments? Is there a motion?
Appreciate all your work and staff on that, BJ.
I'm sorry, I will close the public hearing. Now is there a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we approve OA-01-25, the proposed text amendments to the Southern Pines Unified Development Ordinance.
Second.
Off saying thank you.
They're fine.
Okay. All right, all those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. EJ, thank you for all your diligent work getting our UDO updated. That does not seem like the most fun part of your job, and I don't think any of us envy you that.
I love it.
I'm so glad you do.
Fun, yeah.
Okay, so being that we've had the adjustments on our agenda as mentioned earlier, we're now down to action items. And consider ordinance number 3114, amending chapter 70 of the town's code of ordinances.
Yes, Mayor Clement. This item's before you this evening. It originated with a request from the Sunrise Theater a number of years ago when we put some parking in and painted some stripes on Broad Street. The Sunrise Theater had come before the town council at that time and specifically requested a drop-off zone there in front of the theater. And you'll, if you think about walking down that block of Broad Street, you'll remember there's a sign that says no parking during a particular set of hours, and that was all about dropping off in front of the theater. The mayor was contacted by a representative of the Sunrise Theater asking that we remove those signs because in order to put those signs up, we had to actually make it part of the code at the time. It actually takes this action of council to remove that from the code. In the process of taking a look at that, there were a couple of items in 70, as you're aware, we've been working with Attorney McCarley on trying to clean up portions of the code in various chapters. So what is before you this evening removes some of that language in Chapter 70. It also gets rid of all of Chapter 71. And if you look at Chapter 71 of the Town Code of Ordinances, it's comprised of two things. One, items that are already covered in the general statutes, and part of the cleanup of our code that Attorney McCarley has been working with staff on is to take items that are already referenced specifically in the general statutes and just get them out of the code, because that is something that can be looked toward if there is an issue and an officer needs to write a ticket, as an example. The second items that you will find in Chapter 71 have to do with things that we actually have at this day and age no authority over. So lots to do with truck routes on state DOT roads, for instance. And if you've been here for any time, you know there's ongoing debate and discussion around trucks on Indiana and trucks on Connecticut, but those are all things that the state has sort of taken complete control of, and they don't belong in our code at this time. So before you this evening are the changes to Chapter 70, the biggest of which being the removal of those signs in front of the Sunrise Theater. There are two other areas that were also removed because the scenarios when they were put in place by the councils at that time no longer exist. One being on Vermont, where there used to be a gaming room. It wasn't a bingo hall, but it was kind of a gaming operation. Bridge, thank you very much. That used to bring a lot of traffic, and the businesses there were, they wanted some signage about no more than 1 or 2 hour parking because their clients could not use. There's a number of office buildings along Vermont. The second situation was actually at the old primary school. We had some very specific language in the code that talked about school hours. Of course, there's no longer a school there. So those are the items that are significant coming out of 70. And then 71, again, a lot of code that we either have no authorization or there's already general statute about.
So wind me back to the Sunrise. I'm with you on the primary school. I'm with you on whatever the third one was. What was the third one? Oh, Vermont.
Vermont.
I got you. Okay. What's the change at the Sunrise? Let me just ask my question. Is there still a way for a person who is pretty incapacitated to be picked up? We're still going to have a drop zone in front of the Sunrise for people who come out of an event in a wheelchair and somebody's coming to pick them up.
So the request was from the Sunrise to remove the two signs, and they said that when they see it being a timing issue of dropping off or picking up, they will put cones out, and they have permission for the town to do that.
do that.
Yes, they just don't need the
Okay.
permanent signs.
Otherwise, those two striped areas will return to parking.
Right.
So we'll have to restripe that, I guess?
Well, it is
I think it's
parking
already
now,
striped,
it's
yeah.
just that it's
There's like a
designated
2-hour
during
window
certain
you can't.
hours.
Marked for loading zone. Okay.
It's just taking the signs out.
And this is municipal code changes on 70 and 71.
Yes. Code of ordinances, so not your UDO, but your code of ordinances. And Mac, I don't know if you had anything to add to what I was adding about 71.
It's a real issue helping, I mean, I'm assuming that's still available.
And the request came from the Sunrise to the mayor, who passed it forward to me, and that's when we got into the code, because I knew it was more than just removing signs, because I remembered their original request and the fact that we had passed an ordinance to make it happen, so.
Okay.
There's handicap accessible parking down that way anyway, though.
Not, trust me, not close. There's one space there, and then you've got to go all the way around the block. And,
Train station, too.
right,
Wednesday. Yeah.
but, I mean, I have helped people to cars, and, well, I've been there with a broken kneecap, too, but I have helped people to cars that it's a struggle to get them into a car right in front of the theater.
So I think so they still are looking to reserve spaces just as needed. I would just talk to their
Okay.
board about if you have recommendations on timing.
Right. Was the request from the board, or was the request from the director? Who specifically made the request?
I got the request originally from the board, and then I think the director sent the email. Is that right? I got several emails from several people on the board.
I think
look at it
the
real fast.
one that you forwarded to me was from Mr. Murphy.
Let me look. I've talked to both the incoming board chair, the current board chair, and the director all about it.
Okay.
I'm happy to pass along all those emails
Okay,
or put you in touch with them.
thanks, okay.
Yep, Mike Murphy was who sent the email. And then Amy Haley commented. And Tim is copied on all the emails. Okay. Are there other questions? All right, is there a motion to approve or to amend Chapter 70 of the Town's Code of Ordinances?
So moved.
Second.
Vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Real quickly, Beth, will you look back at our voting on the text amendments? I have in my packet that there was a two-piece vote, two-part vote. Can you just make sure that everything that we needed to say was done, or do we need to go back and revisit and make? Yes.
Yeah, it was all wrapped into one motion, but I think
that
that
okay?
will be fine.
Okay.
I think ideally we break it into two and have the component where we discuss, but the record should show it's adequate and the minutes count as contemplation, so.
BJ and I have been talking about the fact that you don't need to do two separate motions.
Okay, it's just written
on-
out that
On
way.
the consistency statement and then adopting. Because if you do it in two, there's always the chance that you adopt, it is consistent, and then turn it down. It's perfectly reasonable to put those two together into a single
Okay.
motion.
Okay,
And-
great.
And we might start writing them up that way in your packets.
Yeah, that'd be great. Did you have a comment? The sunrise signs? Oh, okay.
If you just clarify that, is that something that, you said the town handles through the ordinance, or just a clarifying question, I didn't quite.
Yeah, all I was saying was that what was in the code was very specific to restricting parking during school hours, so that there was nothing even to enforce because it isn't a school anymore, obviously. So that's why that was just coming out of the code altogether. It was kind of a moot point at this stage.
Okay, so the request those signs moved, we would have to go through the town, or
I think we're already updating it.
I don't think
Since-
you need,
yeah.
you won't need to request it, Ms. Bowman.
I'm sorry.
You won't need to request it, the town will take care of it.
Removed now, so.
So the way that it currently read is it prohibited parking during school hours. And so that's what we're removing that prohibition during school hours, and now it's just parking.
Right.
I appreciate the question for clarification. Okay. Action item B, direct the town clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the petition and certify the result and set a public hearing date for annexation application AX-01-25.
I think the title speaks for itself. This is just step one in an annexation request. There isn't a map in your packet, but actually it's there on the screen. So this is a parcel at the corner of Hedgelawn and Stonyfield Drive, and it's, as you can see, what is in yellow is already in town. In fact, what is in yellow there for the most part is part of the newer Traywick subdivision. This is an older parcel that was part of the unincorporated portion of Sandhurst on that side of the road, and they're requesting annexation. I'm not aware of reasoning behind that. I don't know, BJ, if it... Oh, they do want to connect to the sewer. Okay, well, there you go.
The road?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, again, this is step one. You'll come back for a hearing next month and potential adoption, but the lot is immediately adjacent. It is eligible for annexation, and it's just a decision of the town council at this point. And it's a single parcel, just the one with the blue dot on it there.
I make a motion to direct the town clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the petition and certify the result and set a public hearing date for the annexation application of AX-0125.
June 10th, correct?
Whenever she wants to, yeah.
All right, great.
And I second that.
All right, all those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. All right, nomination of properties for the National Register of Historic Places. Mr. Maddox and I both received a letter from the State Historic Preservation Office requesting comment on two formal National Register of Historic Places nominations, Amos Broadway Theater and Trinity AME Zion Church. Director Grieve? I feel like this has been a long time in the works, but I very formally received the letter last month.
Yeah, it was a very formal activity, yeah. I delivered it to the mayor right here, and I said, okay, this is a big deal. I need you to understand that you've received this. And yeah, to give some context to kind of very briefly tell the story, you may recall that back in 2023, the town was awarded an underrepresented communities grant from the National Park Service for $75,000, and that work was to go towards two main projects within that. Consultants were hired to, number one, take three properties that were already on the nomination list and prepare nominations to be submitted to the National Park Service for review and adding to the National Register. And those three properties are the Amos Broadway Theater, the Trinity AME Zion Church, as well as this building we're in right now. And so the first two of those three, the nominations have been completed. The third is behind by a little bit. This building is behind by a little bit. So they decided to go ahead and push the first two through. And so the other part of the grant, the second bucket over here, which is the first is take those three properties that were already on the watch list, if you will, and bring them up to a nomination. And now the other part of the project is to go out and do a survey of buildings and places in the community that may warrant, for their importance to the community, for their historic relevance to West Southern Pines, may warrant elevating to the list that is now the list that these came off of. So it's sort of identifying other opportunities to move these properties up to here, and then taking those properties that have already been identified and moving them up to the formal nomination status. So the nomination packets were in your packet. The nomination packets for the National Park Service were in your packet. And part of the process, because we are a CLG status local government, the State Historic Preservation Office, in their process of reviewing these nominations, sends them back after they've looked at them, done a review. They send them back and they ask for two things. Number one is for your historic district or historic preservation commission. We have a historic district commission to hold a public hearing, receive any comment, and put forth a recommendation on these two nomination forms. They did that. The meeting was held on May 8th, and a public hearing was held. No public comments were offered. Following the hearing, the commissioners closed the forum. They did bring up two small things that they wanted to see changed on the nomination forms. There was, on each nomination form, in one place it referenced Pinehurst as the county seat, and they said that needs to be changed. And so that was now elsewhere in the nomination it correctly referenced Carthage as the county seat. So for some reason Pinehurst was in there. And then after recommending that change be made, they did recommend to you that both of the nominations be moved forward with that correction as presented with their support. And so now it goes to the chief elected official. And the way it works is the chief elected official can sign off on it to support those nominations. However, in talking with the mayor, we felt that the best thing to do would be to just put this on the agenda, tell the story. This is not necessarily a public hearing, although it's up to you, anybody can speak. But really what it comes down to is the town council just acknowledging that the mayor has been asked as the chief elected official to sign off on these nominations, acknowledging that we're aware of them and we support them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we still have a good number of people in the audience, so I'm assuming that somebody would like to speak. Is there anyone here who would like to speak? I can always. Well, go ahead and get us started, Ms. Brower.
We have one of our pastors here as well. I hate to.
It's all right. So 2 years ago, when this kind of first got started, I sat in one of these meetings in this room when they made the recommendation. And my God, it feels like everything moves so slow. But I'm so excited that we're to where we are right now.
Well, I just want to say thank God for Rachel Mann. I also want to say that this is long overdue for the community, for the nation. AME Zion is an international denomination. We have ministers that were birthed at Trinity. And also the Amos Broadway. When we look at the breweries that are here today, that's nothing compared to what Amos Broadway had in his day and time as a theater, as a beer garden, which has had many uses since then. So I often say that if it's not done in my generation, this generation, it may not get done. So I'm very sentimental about this. So it's overdue.
Well, thank you. Would anyone else like to provide public comment?
Tonight for Dorothy, my sentiment is the same. I have to go up there to say that. We have other, the whole community.
You know what? You know what we can do is if you agree with Ms. Brower, you're welcome to clap or raise a hand or whatever. We'll allow that. Thank you. Okay. For the council, are you all okay with me approving this recommendation?
I want to second the thank God for Rachel Mann. I also want people to note from the footnotes, from the write-up, that Anna Rosano had a big impact with the article that she wrote, and she's quoted in here a lot, and I'm a little bit concerned that it does still say that Pinehurst is the county seat. I share in that concern and hope that that gets fixed because it's so not. It does now refer to it as the largest village in Moore County. And there are two options for the mayor to sign off on. One is just her individually and one is the representative for the entire council. And I would ask that we take the option that the entire council supports this. That would make me really happy. So congratulations. And I think Rachel did amazing work, and I think Anna quietly does amazing work and really is an asset to our community. So thank you.
Council, do you have other comments? Okay. I'm happy to sign off on behalf of our council to make the recommendation.
If signing on behalf of the council, should there be a motion to that effect, just for the record? Yes. Thank you.
Then I move that the entire Southern Pines Town Council stand with the mayor in signing off for these two particular places in West Southern Pines to be admitted to the National Registry.
Second. All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing this facility, the Douglas Community Center, to come through that process as well. And Pines Preservation Guild, if you guys are not familiar with them, they've actually been pretty active in this process as well, so I appreciate their involvement. All right, unless there are other comments for the good of the public, I will hear a motion to adjourn. Anyone?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Wanted to stay here or something. Let's talk more budget.
We want Reagan to redo the budget again.
The Tesla?